all of my artists and movers? It's your girl Gaylyn here, and today we're going to be stretching. So I was talking to one of my friends, Zen. Be sure to check out our last video where we did makeup looks inspired by Cardi B's new music video. But she said that her New Year's resolution was to stretch more, and it got me thinking, I need to stretch more. Today's stretch is going to stretch out your hips, your hamstrings, and your ankles. Go ahead and get your yoga mat out, a nice space for you to stretch in, and your favorite music, and let's get started. Now this is what I call my pre-stretch. We're not actually sitting in stretching positions, but we're kind of moving the muscles around so that we can get them warm and then stretch them out. In this pre-stretch, I like to warm up my neck and kind of trickle down into my spine. So starting with the cervical spine, then the thoracic spine, and then as you can see, I'll do some swinging motions, and that's going to get my lumbar area. So again, we're just getting stuff moving. We're not actually stretching it. We're just getting those muscles warm, and then we're going to stretch them out. Go ahead and take about 30 seconds to do your own personal pre-stretch. Be sure to give both sides of your body, your left and your right, some even attention so that when it's time to stretch, both sides will be good and warm. Okay, now we're going to get into some flexor and extender stretches. First, stand with your feet about a shoulder's width apart in what we call a parallel second position. Reach down to the floor and then reach your arms in front of you as you plie down. So this is going to stretch from your tailbone all the way to your fingertips. You're stretching forward and then you're plieing and folding in those hips. Go ahead and work out any kinks that you have, and let's just hang here for another 30 seconds to let the gravity pull on us and stretch out those hamstrings a little bit more. So now while hanging down, you're going to reach over to your right leg. Make sure you're really stretching out of your back and just let yourself hang here for a moment. Then switch and do it on the left. Alternate back and forth over the right and left legs until you feel a little bit looser in your hamstrings. And if you look carefully, the more repetitions that I do on the right and left side, the further I'm stretching my hands away from my feet. That's going to elongate my back and give me a nice stretch not only in my hamstrings, but in my hips and my lower back as well. Let's put 30 seconds on the clock and alternate from right to left. Okay, you guys, so this is my favorite stretch. If you tell me to stretch, this is probably the stretch that I'm going to do. You're going to stand with your feet wide in a second position and then bend all the way down so it's like a deep, deep second plie. Make sure to press your elbows against your knees to keep your knees from rolling inward and your ankles from pronating. And while you're in this position, you can either do bounces or you can just hold the position. Bounces are going to work your quads, those are the muscles on tops of your thighs, and holding it is going to work your glutes. So either way, it's just a way to get a little bit more out of this stretch. Let's go ahead and finish up our 30 seconds and then we'll move on. Now let's do a fairly simple lunge stretch. I like to rock my weight back and forth when I'm in this stretching position to also get an extra stretch in my Achilles. However, if you're just looking to stretch your hips, make sure that your knee is over your ankle bone. Now lower yourself so that your knee and shin are on the floor and you can get an extra stretch in that right hip flexor. And let's straighten those legs and stretch out those hamstrings a little bit. Be sure to keep the knees straight when you're hanging over. Don't let them bend. I know it can be easy for them to bend, but make sure you keep them straight so you can really optimize that stretch. And now while you're in this position, shift your weight forward onto your left leg and rotate your right ankle off of the floor to warm up your tendons in your feet and your arch. Now let's drop it back down to a lunge, and this time drop your knee and shin to the floor and reach back to pull your feet toward you. Be sure that you are not sickling your foot in this position. Make sure that big toe is in line with the ankle as you're pulling it. And let's finish this side off by lowering your leg and your upper body so that you are resting on your elbows. This is going to give you a deeper stretch and also improve your splits if that's something that you're working on. Now let's go ahead and do everything on the other side. You can go at your own pace, or when you hear this sound, it means to switch positions so you can follow along with me. Great job, you guys! We just finished stretching our flexor and extender muscles. Now, let's stretch our adductors and abductors. These are the muscles that are going to help your second splits or really any motions that move to the side, either away or toward the body. Most of these stretches will also work your hip internal and external rotating muscles, which are super important if you're looking to improve your turnout or if you're just looking to clean up some of your technical lines. First, we're going to start off with a nice calm butterfly position. Make sure the bottoms of your feet are touching together and bend yourself over to stretch out your hips and lower back. While we're here, let's do 16 gentle bounces. And release the stretch. And now let's reach forward again, stretching your arms as far as they can go forward. And as you're doing this, really breathe out and exhale so that you relax further and further into the stretch. And now take a deep breath. And release the stretch. Okay, now sit on your bottom and you're going to twist your knees so that they fall toward the center of your body. We just did a lot of external rotation stretching. Anytime you stretch, you want to make sure that you also stretch the opposite muscles. So this motion is going to give you some internal rotation stretch. That way both muscle groups are equally flexible. Now we're going to take what is known as a Graham fourth position. Sit yourself as if you were going to do a split, but instead of straightening both legs, bend both of them. Relax yourself over your front leg just as you did when we were sitting in the butterfly position. Let's just take a moment here as we let ourselves breathe deeply and relax further into the stretch. And release the stretch. Take a moment here to massage the muscles that maybe need a little bit more work or require a little bit more care. And let's go ahead and do the other side. Just as before, you'll hear this sound when it's time to switch positions. Now, to stretch the coveted middle splits. Let's go ahead and start off with just a nice simple relaxation over, and be sure to rotate both of your legs outward so that your toes aren't pointing toward the floor. stretching out of the extremities with the arms and elongating both sides of the body. Be sure to still keep that rotation outwards so that you're not turning your feet in and pointing your toes toward the floor. And let's go ahead and switch and reach to the other side. And release. Now the stretch, you can either do it with me or you can skip it if you're not a super flexible person, but I like to call it the starfish, and you just lay down in a nice flat middle split with your chest on the floor and your arms stretched out sideways like a starfish. I like to do this stretch for at least a minute long, so if you're joining me, just take a moment and chill. And if you're not, now would be a great time to get some water. Great job, you guys! Now let's get into the last of our abductor-adductor stretches. Go ahead and sit as if you were going to do a middle split, but bend one of your knees inward. Now reach over as if you were to stretch a middle split, being sure to keep your legs still turned out in this position. This stretch is basically a combination of the butterfly stretch and the middle split that we did before. Be sure to keep the bottoms of both of your hips on the floor. And now let's just lay here and relax. And now switch legs and stretch over on the other side. Alright, you guys, we're almost done. It's time to stretch those feet and ankles. Now for these stretches, I like to use my rice sock heating pad. Be sure to check out my video where I talk about the 10 things every dancer should have, where I also list 9 other items outside of this heating pad that keep me at my best. First, I like to sit my heating pad on my feet so that I can get the muscles and tissues in my feet nice and warm. While I'm doing that, I'm going to do any simple stretch to make sure that all of the other muscles that I warmed up are stretched to their fullest potential. For me, this is a simple stretch over the knees with my legs parallel together. If you don't have a heating pad, try sitting with your legs crisscrossed and massage your feet so that you can get the tissues and muscles warm. Take a moment now to warm up your feet using heat contact or using your hands. Then we'll finish up this complete stretch routine by stretching out our feet. Bend your knees and stand in a forced arch so that your weight is over the balls of your feet. Alternate pedaling motions with your right and left foot, being sure to keep your weight over your toes as you're doing this. I like to re-stretch my neck while I'm in this position. And now let's walk our hands forward and straighten our legs. Be sure to keep your weight over your toes, and if you want, you can do a couple pliés and relevés while we're here as well. And that's it, we're done. I like to finish off by doing some improv, and that way I can just kind of check and make sure that all of my muscles are nice and warm, and then I'm ready to go. Thanks you guys so much for stretching with me. I hope it helped you get a little bit more flexible, a little more stretched out, but that you also learned a little something something. Be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can see all of my future uploads, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later!